On Chogoris, a tale is told from the time before discord came. A sage of golden terror made his life's work the study of the 18. As each son of the emperor was found, he traveled the stars to seek accounts of their deeds and nature. He collected testimony and submitted many scrolls to the throne world for safekeeping. Some of them are still there, they say. Some are lost. Such is the way of things. It is said that this sage was sufficiently venerable that he had the ear of the emperor himself. One night, before the advent of strife, the two of them walked the palace walls together. Birds sang. In those days, there were still birds alive on golden terror. The emperor, whose face was hidden by splendor, asked the sage how his work was progressing. "Very well, my liege," the sage replied, just as ever unable to look his master in the eye. "I have created an archive for you, so that your achievement may be recognized for posterity. The library of the Primarchs." The emperor said nothing. On the few occasions when they had spoken together, the sage had rarely known what the emperor thought, or even if he were truly listening at all. In this, he was not alone, for the thoughts of the emperor were beyond the thoughts of all mortals. "It will be a valuable addition, I hope," the sage went on, feeling the need to fill the silence with words. "Except that it has been easier to study some of your sons than others." Still, the emperor said nothing. "I do not pretend to understand your plans fully," the sage said, "and I do not presume to question the nature of those, such as the Lord of the Red Sands, into whom inquiry has been challenging. They are all so different. That, I suppose, is the genius of them. Each has his nature. Each has his gift." The emperor stopped walking and looked up into the starry heavens. In those days, the skies of golden terror still had stars. "But then there is the Warhawk," said the sage, shaking his head. "The Great Khan of the Fifth. Of all of them, I have never come close to him. Whatever his gift is, I remain ignorant of it. It is here that accounts diverge. Some say that the emperor smiled. Others say that the emperor never smiled. Still others maintain that the emperor had no human features at all, but was like the light of the sun at noon in an empty sky." "You wish to know what gift Jaghatai possesses?" the emperor said. "Yes, my liege," said the sage, "very much, but nothing is known. Nothing is settled. His entry in the library will be slender, and even that will be supposition and hearsay. Sometimes I wonder if he is real at all, or just the rumor of a savage people. With him, with this Great Khan, there is only confusion." The emperor began to walk again. "There is your answer," he said. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, today we venture across the sands of time and the vast expanse of the galaxy to shine a light on one of the most enigmatic figures in our Imperium's storied past. Jaghatai Khan, Primarch of the White Scars, the Warhawk. Born of the Emperor's flesh and genetic mastery, scattered to the stars by the machinations of dark forces, his saga is one of unity, speed, and the spirit of freedom. Jaghatai Khan's tale begins not on the battlefields of the Great Crusade, nor within the hallowed halls of terror, but on the rugged steppes of a distant world known as Chogoris. A planet of fierce warriors and sprawling plains, it was here, in this place of strife and endless horizons, that the 15th son of the Emperor would forge his destiny. As the master of the White Scars, Jaghatai infused his legion with the essence of Chogorian culture, the value of rapid movement, the art of hit-and-run warfare, and above all, the bond of brotherhood that tied each warrior to his kin. They became the Emperor's swift blade, striking where the enemy least expected, their lightning raids becoming a legend. Yet the tale of Jaghatai Khan is not without its mysteries. His disdain for the politicking of the Imperium, his fierce independence, and his eventual disappearance into the webway in pursuit of dark foes leave us with more questions than answers. What drove the Khan to take such risks? What battles did he fight in the shadowed corridors of the Webway? And, most compelling, does he yet live, waiting to emerge in humanity's darkest hour? As we delve into the Khan's legacy, let us remember the lessons of his life. That unity can be forged from diversity, that freedom is a cause worth any sacrifice, and that the quest for victory demands both speed and strength. The story of the Warhawk is a message for all who serve the Imperium, a reminder of the spirit that defines the very best of mankind. So please sit and listen closely. Like those of his brothers, Jaghatai Khan's pod was hurled through the warp, landing on the feudal world of Chogoris. This planet, characterized by its vast plains and fierce nomadic tribes, was to become the crux for the Khan's early development. Unlike the technologically advanced Terra, Chogoris was a world where horseback was the pinnacle of speed and bow and black powder, the height of ranged warfare. It was here, among the fierce tribes of the steppes, that Jaghatai would forge his destiny. Mundus Planus, as imperial cartographers call it. It was and still is a fertile world with lush greenery, soaring mountains, and azure seas. A census imperialis of the day records that the dominant Chogorian Empire at this time was an organized aristocracy that had conquered most of the planet, with well-equipped and highly disciplined armies. Armored horsemen and infantry phalanxes had won every campaign their ruler, the Palatine, had fought. It is thought that one of his generals, Jaghatai, penned the Great Khan of Chogoris after the Primarch's disappearance, and it is this ancient text which has provided historians with one of the best accounts of his life. Chogorian sources have also left copious and often wildly exaggerated records of his exploits. Jaghatai's legend began near the Kwonon River when Ong Khan, the leader of a small tribe known as the Talskars, encountered the Primarch. It is said that he was a glowing child, a gift from the heavens, so he took him to his family and named him Jaghatai. Jaghatai is said to have had a fire in his eyes, a Talskar term for a great warrior. A colourful passage in the Great Khan of Chogoris known as the Blooding relates that while Jaghatai was young, raiders from a rival tribe slew his adopted father and killed Talskar men in a vicious ambush. Jaghatai was already the greatest warrior amongst his tribe, with many ritual scars of courage, and warriors flocked to join him when he set out to avenge these deaths. He led an attack, a revenge attack on the Kurayed village, and razed it to the ground, killing every man, woman and child in a frenzied massacre. These events were to shape the Primarch into the man he would become, a man of fierce honor, loyalty, and ruthlessness. With blood and honor satisfied, Jaghatai swore to end the destructive internecine wars that were destroying his people. Following this victory, Jaghatai became Khan of the Talskars and fought many battles against the other steppe tribes. Each defeated tribe was brought within the Talskars and became part of his army. His talents and the sheer force of his personality won him many followers. His army became known as the Mathuil, a Talskar word for irresistible force. He combined warriors of different tribes into the same units to break up tribal associations, fostering a fierce loyalty to the army and himself. He promoted men purely based on ability and brought a feeling of shared purpose to everyone he came into contact with. The Khan prepared his army and sent a message to the Palatine. The people of the steppes are yours no longer. When the snows retreated, the enraged Palatine sought to obliterate the barbarian tribes, but Jaghatai Khan was a force to be reckoned with. In the Valley of the Khans, his mobile, lightly armored horsemen outmaneuvered the Palatine's forces. The Khan then laid waste to the Palatine's realm. He outsmarted his foe, leading his army through the treacherous Kuzul-Kwan desert to strike at the heart of the enemy's domain. Cities were forced to surrender or be razed. The Palatine's brutal campaign left countless dead, earning the tribesmen a reputation as vengeful demons. Ultimately, Jaghatai's invasion culminated at Kopasta, the Palatine's stronghold, where the enemy leader was slain and the city surrendered. Thus, the Khan became the ruler of Chogoris. The arrival of the emperor marked the beginning of Jaghatai's true destiny. Unlike many of his brothers, Jaghatai recognized the emperor immediately, seeing in him not just a ruler, but a kindred spirit who shared his vision of a unified humanity. This reunion was not just a pivotal moment for Jaghatai, but a crucial juncture for the Imperium, for it gained a general whose tactics and philosophy were unlike any other. Coming from the vast steppes of Chogoris, Terra represented a stark contrast, a world of ancient regality and the heart of a burgeoning galactic empire. His reunion with the emperor was marked by mutual respect, a recognition of sovereignty and purpose. Terra was a world of politics and power plays, a far cry from the straightforward life of a nomad on Chogoris. The Khan, with his disdain for the intricate dances of court life, found himself at odds with the expectations placed upon him as a Primarch. His nature was to act, lead from the front, and not engage in the subtle manipulations and diplomacy that the Terran court required. This dichotomy between his inherent nature and the role expected of him by the Imperium's elite would define much of his time on Terra. Jaghatai's relationship with the emperor was also one of philosophical discourse. The Khan's belief in freedom, in the right of every individual to forge their destiny, often clashed with the emperor's vision of a unified, ordered imperium. Though born of mutual respect, these discussions highlighted the intrinsic tension between the Khan's ideals and the reality of the Imperium's authoritarian regime. The imperial truth gnawed at him. His people sang to the sky spirits, listened to the whispers of the wind, and felt the pulse of the land beneath their steeds. It was in their blood, an instinctual knowledge of a world greater than the eyes could see. The emperor called this superstition and deemed it a poison holding back humanity, but Jaghatai couldn't shake the feeling that some truths remained elusive. Taking his place as the master of the 5th Legion, Jaghatai found himself at the helm of a force as scattered and diverse as the stars they voyaged between. Before his command, the White Scars were a legion of pioneers and explorers spread thin across the vast expanse of the galaxy. Yet, in this scattered force, the Khan saw not disarray, but the seeds of mobility and rapid strikes that mirrored his way of war back on the steppes of Chogoris. The Khan's leadership was transformative, imbuing the legion with the essence of Chogorian culture and tactics. He saw the value in the hit-and-run tactics of his nomadic heritage, understanding deeply that speed and mobility were not just tactics, but a way of life. Under his guidance, the White Scars became the masters of lightning warfare, striking with the speed of the wind and the ferocity of a thunderbolt, leaving their enemies reeling before they could muster a coherent response. But it wasn't just tactics that the Great Khan imparted upon his legion. He infused the White Scars with a deep sense of brotherhood, drawing upon the traditions of his people. The legionnaires adopted the customs of Chogoris, from the blooding ritual to the practice of the noble pursuits, such as poetry, calligraphy, and the hunt. This cultural metamorphosis forged an unbreakable bond among the White Scars, a unity that made them a legion and a tribe. One who took no joy in killing, but who took joy out of the art of combat itself. The campaign that epitomized Jaghatai's approach was the pacification of the Kolani Circle. In this treacherous expanse, the White Scars faced not only the enemies of the Imperium, but the challenge of becoming a unified, cohesive force. Jaghatai led from the front, his presence on the battlefield inspiring his warriors. This campaign was as much about forging the Legion's spirit as it was about conquest. Through blood and fire, the White Scars emerged as a legion reborn. His leadership was marked by his questioning commitment to the Emperor's vision, yet he was not afraid to interpret that vision in his way. He valued independence, understanding that serving the Emperor did not mean losing one's identity. This philosophy guided his decisions, from his tactics to how he governed the world under his domain. During the Heresy, the Khan found himself at a crossroads. The galaxy was tearing apart, brother against brother, and the Great Khan was pressured to choose a side. The Warmaster Horus had turned his back on the Emperor, believing he could sway Jaghatai to his cause. Confusion reigned as the Khan received contradictory astropathic messages about the tragedy unfolding in the Istvan system. Determined to seek the truth amid the deceit, Jaghatai chose to withhold his legion's might. A plea from Terra, from Dawn himself, called the loyal Astartes to defend the cradle of humanity. With a heavy heart, the Khan decided to heed this call, though it meant leaving the Space Wolves to contend with the machinations of the Alpha Legion alone. His path was one of seeking understanding before drawing the sword, for the bloodshed that stained the stars demanded an answer. Trapped in the Kondak system, they fought fiercely against Orc hordes and navigated through warp storms, the strings of the Alpha Legion's trap tugging at their every move. It was only through Jaghatai's skill that they broke free, setting a course for Prospero, a world of ruins. On Prospero, it is said the spectre of Magnus the Red, once brother and confidant, appeared before the Khan. The Crimson King spoke of choices and the paths they must walk, but the Khan, unwavering, severed the apparition with a stroke of his blade, rejecting the temptations of the warp. Mortarion offered a place at Horus's side, yet the Khan saw through the lies, recognizing the chains that bound Mortarion to the warp's whims. Their duel was a clash of speed against endurance, but the battle among the stars drew Mortarion away, leaving the question of loyalty answered by the sword. Amidst this chaos, a betrayal festered within the White Scar's ranks. Hasik Noyan Khan and Torgun Khan, seduced by the promise of power, conspired against their Primarch. Many of the Terrorborn Scars betrayed their oaths, but loyalty won the day. Jaghatai and his White Scars waged a relentless guerrilla war against the traitor forces. Cut off from Terra by blockades and the warp, the Great Khan deployed his legion in a campaign of hit-and-run strikes that bled the enemy without offering them a solid target to strike back against. It was a masterful display of the Scars' signature warfare style, turning their mobility into their greatest weapon. Once back to Terra. As the Solar War entered its final explosive phase, Jaghatai Khan dispatched his Scars to outmaneuver the traitors' flanking assaults. With the strategic acumen that had defined his legion's wars, he positioned his forces to protect Sol's orbital disk. Yet, amidst the fury of battle, Jaghatai maintained a belief that Horus had already lost, that their actions had bought precious time for Guilliman and reinforcements to arrive. The siege of Terra was a crucible that tested the mettle of every warrior who fought within its shadow, and none more so than Jaghatai. From the very outset, Jaghatai's restive spirit chafed against the constraints of Dawn. The Khan could not countenance the abandonment of countless Imperial army soldiers beyond the palace walls, nor could he reconcile himself with an overly passive strategy. It was against his nature, against everything the White Scars stood for, to wait behind walls for the enemy to come. In defiance of Dawn's orders, Jaghatai took the battle to the enemy. Mounted on his jet bike, he led a whirlwind of destruction charge, a perfect embodiment of the White Scar's way of war. During the height of the fighting, Jaghatai again came to blows with his brother Mortarion. Faced with Mortarion's new demonic form, the Khan was brutally beaten down and nearly defenseless. However, he was able to find a weakness in the Death Lord with his pride. The Khan insulted Mortarion for being weak and giving in to the powers of the warp, while he himself had resisted the temptations of chaos. Mortarion flew into a rage. In the end, the badly wounded Jaghatai was impaled on the blade of Mortarian's scythe, but pulled his body along its length to get face-to-face with the Death Guard Primarch. The Khan decapitated Mortarian, who was banished back into the warp. What followed was nothing short of miraculous. Found near death, Jaghatai was taken to Malkador, the Sigillite, who attempted to heal the fallen Primarch. But the Emperor, from afar, ultimately saved Jaghatai, ensuring that the Khan would survive, though his recovery would be extended. To the broader Imperium and many of his brother Primarchs, Jaghatai Khan was an enigma, a warrior who prized freedom and rapid movement in warfare above all. His legion mirrored their Primarch's temperament, fierce, fast and unfettered by the constraints that bound more conventional forces. To some, this made the White Scars seem less disciplined, less reliable in the grand schema of the Imperium's wars. Yet those who fought alongside them knew better. They saw the precision in the White Scars' seeming chaos, the strategy behind their unpredictability. His camaraderie with Horus, devoid of rivalry or pretense, showcases a rare, unguarded fraternity among the Primarchs. Their interactions were about mutual respect and understanding each other's burdens and aspirations. This ability to forge deep, meaningful connections, albeit with a chosen few, reveals a layer of the Khan's personality that went largely unnoticed during the Heresy. Perhaps out of all his brothers, Horus understood Jaghatai. At the very least, he knew that beneath the gruff exterior was a man of deep thought. And Horus was one of the few brothers who did not question the Khan's tactics, for they always brought results. Even the outsider among his brothers, Magnus the Red, found a confidant in Jaghatai. They shared an understanding, two souls who walked paths less trodden, who saw the universe through lenses not clouded by dogma or unthinking obedience. Yet not all perceptions were cast in the light of admiration. Rogel Dawn saw the White Scars' way of war as reckless, their reliance on speed and mobility an unnecessary gamble when the solid bedrock of fortification and defense had proven so effective. Leman Russ saw in Jaghatai a worthy rival, a brother whose love for the thrill of the hunt matched his own. Their fierce and proud legions shared a mutual respect forged in the fires of countless battles. Yet beneath the camaraderie lay an undercurrent of competition, a desire to prove whose warriors were the greatest in the Imperium. Yet even the Khan disliked the barbarism displayed by Leman, for he knew that the great Primarch of the Space Wolves played into this part. In contrast, his legion was considered barbars for their appearance and nature, despite being everything but. To the Emperor, it is said, did not distrust the Khan, but did have him watched, for he knew that out of all his other sons, he was the least predictable and the most openly hostile to the Emperor's Imperium. I suspect, dear listeners, that many from the bureaucrats of the Imperium to his brother Primarchs, much of what they knew of him was through their own ignorance. The Khan was a man who feigned interest, and often was stoic in his presentation of himself and his legion. During the Great Crusade, the White Scars and the Khan kept their distance from many of the other legions, operating on the fringes of space and letting all those who saw them believe they were lesser men. His relationships, or the lack thereof, with his brethren paint a picture of a figure who was enigmatic, even among demigods. The Khan's closeness with a select few, such as Magnus and Horus, and possibly Sanguinius, suggests a depth of loyalty and camaraderie that transcended the strategic interests or legion doctrines. This selectiveness in his associations speaks to a discerning nature that valued genuine connection over the superficial bonds of duty or shared cause. The sparse interactions between the Khan and his brothers, as noted by Dawn and Russ, underscore a recurring theme of isolation, or perhaps a self-imposed distance, that defined him. This distance wasn't born out of disdain, but a strategic choice to remain unpredictable and unknown. Yet this approach bred a sense of obscurity that seemed to chafe at the Khan himself. especially when the heresy made the loyalty and position of every Primarch a matter of grave import. The Great Khan was a paradox to his peers. He might have appeared distant to the uninitiated, a figure of solitude. But those who truly knew him, who had ridden by his side and fought under his banner, understood the depth of his camaraderie and the warmth that burned beneath his stoic exterior. He was a brother in arms to his warriors, sharing their joys, sorrows, victories and defeats. Khan's sense of freedom was the core of his being, a fundamental belief that shaped every decision and tactic. This unbridled spirit made the White Scars under his command a force unpredictable on the battlefield and fluid in their movements. Yet this love of freedom was not born of selfish desires. Honor was the compass that guided Jaghatai Khan's life. It was an honor not defined by rigid codes or the expectations of others. Still, it was an intrinsic personal honor that demanded integrity in every action, loyalty to one's brothers and sisters, and a purposeful life. For the Khan, to act dishonorably was to betray not only those he commanded, but himself. This honor tied him to his men as much as it tied him to the Imperium. One could say it was an honor that kept the Khan from betraying the Emperor. Despite his martial prowess and the fear he inspired in his enemies, Jaghatai was a philosopher who pondered much. He sought knowledge not for power, but for understanding, valuing wisdom as much as strength. His conversations were laced with insight, and he listened as keenly as he spoke, valuing the perspectives of others, even if they diverged from his own. In battle, Jaghatai Khan's laughter was said to be as thunderous as the charge of his cavalry, a sound that uplifted the spirits of his warriors and struck terror into the hearts of his foes. For the Khan, the battle was the ultimate expression of freedom, when life's trivialities fell away, leaving only the pure essence of existence. When the galaxy was torn asunder by civil war, many failed to consider where the Khan's loyalties lay, assuming his fealty was a given. For many thought that he would side with Horus, including the Emperor. But Jaghatai was beholden to no one's expectations but his own. His decision to stand with the Emperor was a choice born of his own convictions, a path he chose not out of obligation or loyalty, but out of a belief that the Imperium, for all its faults, was much better than the ruinous powers. In the end, Jaghatai's legacy is that of a forgotten Primarch, whose actions reverberated through the ages. His choice during the Heresy, made quietly yet with consequence, served as a testament to his character, no glory. It was a decision that helped safeguard the Emperor's vision for humanity, ensuring that the dream of the Imperium would endure against all odds. In his understated way, Jaghatai's choice is perhaps why we are all here and alive today, listeners. For if he sided with Horus, I suspect the heresy would have ended very differently. Jaghatai emerges, in my eyes, as perhaps the most grounded of all the Primarchs. This observation might seem paradoxical at first glance, considering the exotic origins and nature of the White Scars. Yet precisely in these contrasts, the Khan's pragmatism shines brightest. It is said by the White Scars that it is impossible to find their center. For their center is the Great Khan, a man always on the move, unpredictable and ruthless. He was, fundamentally, a being of action rather than ideology. While his brothers constructed empires, delved into the arcane, or sought perfection in various forms, the Khan remained focused on the immediate, tangible needs of the Great Crusade and, by extension, humanity. His pragmatism was not born of a lack of vision, but rather an understanding of the immediate reality, the necessity of the Imperium's expansion and the protection of its people. This pragmatism extended to his leadership and tactics. The Khan's sophisticated strategies were never overburdened by complexity for its own sake. They were direct, effective, and adaptable, reflecting a mind that valued results over the grandeur of the process. In this, there's a remarkable semblance of normalcy, a grounding in the real rather than the ideal. Moreover, his pragmatism was coupled with a lack of pretense towards any grand belief system or personal aggrandizement. In an era where many of his brothers lost themselves to their legends or the allure of power, the Khan remained unmistakably human. His actions were not for the sake of legacy or to fulfill a perceived destiny, but were taken with the well-being of humanity in mind. Jaghatai Khan's life was a testament to doing what was best for humanity, not out of a sense of duty to a higher power or his father, but because it was the most pragmatic approach to ensure the survival and prosperity of the species. This is not to say he lacked personal beliefs or passions, but somewhat that the reality of the situation always tempered these. It is in this that Jaghatai, the Great Khan of the White Scars, may indeed be considered the most normal of his extraordinary kin, a man of pragmatism and selflessness in an era defined by anything but. In the wake of the Heresy, the Khan remained undeterred in his commitment to the Imperium's restoration. His subsequent leadership during the Great Scouring, a relentless campaign to purge the remnants of betrayal from the galaxy, underscored his enduring valor and strategic insight. Yet his vendetta against the Drukhari, the dark kin of the Eldar who had preyed upon Chogoris during the conflict, would mark his final chapter. The Battle of Coruscant V. In pursuit of a formidable Drukhari Archon, Khan ventured into the Webway. The tales recounting this endeavor speak of an eternal conflict against the Dark Eldar, a battle waged beyond time and space constraints. Yet skepticism surrounds these accounts, for the Webway's treacherous pathways have led many into oblivion. Whether Khan's fate was to be forever entangled in the Webway's infinite complexities or lost amidst the warp's capricious tides, his legacy endures. In the hearts of the White Scars, he remains the epitome of the eternal warrior, riding the winds of battle beyond the veil of reality. The mystery of his fate only amplifies the mystique and legend of the Great Khan. As historians and scholars of the Imperium ponder the scant details of his last campaign, the legend of Jaghatai reminds them of the sacrifices made by the Emperor's sons. In pursuit of duty and retribution, they traversed realms beyond human comprehension, their true endings often as mysterious as those they sought to conquer. Perhaps one day we may see him again, for no one can truly best the Warhawk of Chogoris, for he is unknowable. In closing, the tale of Jaghatai Khan and his indomitable White Scars is a saga of courage, strategic brilliance, and fierce loyalty to humanity. Throughout the era of the Great Crusade, the Horus Heresy and the scouring that followed the Khan's legend were shaped by his actions that speak of a Primarch who was not only a master of warfare, but also a philosopher-warrior with a deep understanding of both freedom and duty. To study Jaghatai Khan's life and deeds is to understand the heart of a warrior who lived for the thrill of the hunt and the glory of battle, yet always with a mind towards the greater good of the Imperium. As historians, we may ponder the what-ifs of his mysterious fate. Still, as students of his legacy, we are reminded of the enduring power of loyalty, honor, and the unending quest for perfection in service to the Emperor. Thus, let us remember Jaghatai Khan not only as the Storm Lord, the master of hit-and-run tactics, or even the Primarch who vanished into legend. Let us not forget him as a beacon of what it means to be truly free to choose one's path, defend one's ideals, and leave a mark on history that endures beyond the passing of ages.